did not beg. I just packed my life into the trunk of my car and drove into the night after realizing the woman I loved had been sleeping with her boss for months. 5 years of marriage gone in one heartbeat, erased by a kiss I was never supposed to see. I left quietly. No fights, no drama. Just a note on the kitchen table that said, "I hope it was worth it." For 18 months, I disappeared from our old life. No calls from me, no address, no replies, no closure. But ghosts have a strange way of finding you when you finally start breathing again. Mine showed up in the middle of a small town afternoon with tears, apologies, and a look that said she still thought she could pull me back into hell. Before I share my story, I would love to know you are here with me and listening. I love hearing how far my story can reach. Sometimes just knowing someone out there is listening makes it easier to tell the truth. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. If this story hits somewhere deep, do not forget to subscribe. Every story I share comes from a real place, from people like me and maybe a little like you. My name is Michael Grant, and this is the day I learned silence can be louder than revenge. Mornings in Salt Lake City always felt too bright for the kind of silence that lived in our apartment. The sun bounced off the glass towers across the street, slicing through the blinds, landing on the marble countertop where 2 coffee cups sat, one half empty, one untouched. I used to love that light. It made the place feel alive, like a promise that even in the heart of the city, warmth could find its way through steel and glass. But lately, it only reminded me how much distance can fit between 2 people sharing the same kitchen. I was 34, director of technical sales for an energy firm, and 5 years into what used to be a pretty solid marriage. Karen, my wife, worked for Atlas Dynamics. She had just been promoted to regional manager, a title that sounded expensive and lonely all at once. By 6:30 that morning, she was already dressed, hair twisted neatly, eyes on her laptop. I poured her coffee the way she liked. 2 creams, no sugar, but she barely looked up. Her inbox was her breakfast. "You still good for dinner Friday?" I asked, pretending to scroll through my phone. She did not look away from her screen. "Oh, shoot. I forgot to tell you. There is a work outing. You know how it is. I cannot skip this one." That was the 3rd Friday in a row she had said that. Work outing had become her favorite phrase, 2 harmless words that seemed to replace anniversaries, birthdays, and slow evenings on the couch. She finally glanced up, smiling the way people do when they are trying to soften a blow. "Next week, I promise we will do something nice, okay?" I nodded. I wanted to believe her. I always did. Her phone face down beside the keyboard buzzed twice. She slid it into her purse without checking. A reflex quick and practiced. I told myself not to read into it, but the sound stuck in my chest. The buzz felt louder than her voice, louder than the spoon clinking in my cup. Sometimes at night I would watch her type emails in bed, blue light washing over her face. She said she was handling the Asia-Pacific team, that time zones made it tricky. I tried not to question it. I traveled a lot, too. So who was I to doubt her? But lately, even when we were both home, it felt like we were living on different continents. On my way to work, I caught my reflection in the elevator mirror. I did not recognize the man staring back. He looked older, not in the face, but in the eyes, the way they had learned to brace for disappointment. I told myself every couple hit rough patches. I told myself this was normal, but something about the way she smiled goodbye, tight, polite, as if we were colleagues instead of partners, made me feel like I was standing on the edge of a story I did not want to read. 7 years earlier, before all this, we had met at a conference in Phoenix. It had rained the night we fell for each other. We ran out of the bar, laughing, soaked through, spinning in the middle of the street like idiots. She kissed me under a streetlight and said, "You will never forget this." She was right. The memory plays on repeat, cruelly bright every time I wonder where that woman went. Back then, I believed rain could wash away anything. Now, looking out over the gleaming towers of downtown, I was not so sure. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe it was the pressure. That is what I told myself as I straightened my tie and stepped out the door. But somewhere between the elevator and the parking garage, I caught my reflection again. Same suit, same coffee, same forced calm, and realized something had already shifted. The glass between us had begun to crack. And for the first time, I was not sure who was holding the hammer. It happened on a Saturday afternoon, the kind that smells like detergent and grocery store rotisserie chicken. We had just pulled into the underground parking garage, and Karen popped the trunk for me to grab the shopping bags. The lights flickered that sickly yellow, the kind that makes even the cleanest concrete look dirty. I was juggling a paper bag when something bright caught my eye under the front passenger seat, a flash of color where there should not have been any. I crouched down, reached in, and froze. A strip of pink lace peeked out from beneath the seat rail. For a second, I could not even process what I was seeing. Then my stomach dropped. It was hers. I knew it instantly. Not just the color. Karen only ever bought that specific brand from a boutique near Central Station, but the pattern, delicate and familiar. It was the one she wore on nights when she wanted to get close back, when closeness still meant something. I stared at it too long, trying to build a version of reality that made sense. Maybe it fell out of the laundry bag. Maybe she changed after the gym. Maybe. But the air felt heavy, and the hum of the fluorescent lights turned into a sound I could not stand. My hand shook as I pushed the lace farther under the seat, hiding it like evidence I was not ready to face. When she appeared behind me, her heels clicking on the concrete, I almost jumped. "Hey, what is wrong?" "You look like you saw a ghost." "Dust in my eye," I said, my voice flat. She smiled, bought the lie, and walked ahead with the bags. That night, I tried to reset us. I made dinner, steak salad, a bottle of red I had been saving since our anniversary. I lit candles at the table. It looked like the kind of dinner that could save something. But when she came out of the shower, hair damp and perfume sharp, she barely glanced at it. "Oh God, I forgot. I told the team I would meet them at Monroe Tap for drinks." "You can stay," I said quietly. "Just one night in." She paused, confused by my tone. "I cannot, Michael. It is work. Do not be upset." I did not answer. I just stood there watching her slip into that navy dress she had bought for conferences. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her purse, and left. The door clicked shut behind her. I stared at the table, the flowers, the candles, the untouched wine, and poured the entire bottle down the sink. The scent of steak filled the kitchen like an insult. I had read stories about people snooping through phones, hiring private investigators, losing their minds, chasing ghosts. I did not want to be that guy. I wanted proof, not paranoia. So I made a plan. While she was in the shower earlier, I had slipped my work phone into the cup holder of her car, a quiet insurance policy. It had GPS tracking, something I used for field reps. I told myself I would only check it if I really had to. But sitting there in the dark, the candles still flickering low, I opened the tracking app. The little blue dot moved north, steady, deliberate toward downtown. Then it stopped at a bar she had mentioned before, the Brass Lantern. My chest tightened. I watched it stay there for an hour, then start moving again. It is strange how betrayal does not explode all at once. It leaks in slow and quiet until everything inside you rusts. I stared at the screen pulse hammering in my ears, thinking about that pink lace under the seat and the look in her eyes when she said, "Do not be upset." I told myself maybe she really was meeting her coworkers. Maybe I would wake up tomorrow, laugh at myself, delete the app, and forget all about it. But deep down, I already knew the truth. And for the first time in our marriage, I was afraid of what I would do if I saw it with my own eyes. The drive south on I-15 out of Salt Lake City was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt rehearsed. The city fell away behind me, replaced by the pale orange of highway lights, and the hum of tires on cold asphalt. The blue dot on my phone had not moved for 20 minutes. It sat steady on a rooftop bar in Stonebridge, a place where the after-work crowd liked to pretend their lives were still exciting. I parked across the street, killed the engine, and waited. The bar glowed under strings of Edison bulbs full of laughter that carried too easily through the air. It was almost an hour before the door opened and I saw her. Karen hair pulled back, shoulders relaxed in a way I had not seen in months. Beside her walked a man in a dark suit, his hand brushing her lower back with the kind of familiarity you do not fake. He leaned in, said something that made her laugh, then pulled her closer and kissed her. Quick, confident, practiced. Something inside me shut off. The noise from the street went flat like I had been dropped underwater. My stomach tightened and the blood behind my eyes pulsed hot. I sat there watching the two of them walk to a silver BMW. He opened the door for her. She got in without hesitation. They drove off and I followed. We wound north through the foothills, the sky thinning into cold air. Pines blurred by headlights cutting across the mountainside until the GPS stopped at Silver Creek, a small town lined with boutique hotels and weekend getaways for people who wanted romance they could check out of by Monday. Their car pulled into the parking lot of the Silver Creek Lodge, its windows glowing amber behind tall glass. I watched them get out, hand in hand, silhouettes folding into the revolving door. For a split second, their reflections spun across the glass, and I saw my own face caught among theirs, a ghost standing outside the circle. I did not remember gripping the wheel until my knuckles hurt. I did not scream. I did not even curse. I just sat there breathing in the stale air of the car, feeling every slow beat of disbelief settle into something colder. Then I started the engine and drove. A few miles out of town, a wooden tavern appeared along the roadside, its neon sign half burnt. I pulled in without knowing why. Inside, the place smelled like pine and whiskey. A woman behind the bar glanced at me. Rosa Martinez, her name tag said. Her voice was soft but certain. Some folks come here because they want quiet more than they want a drink. I nodded, slid onto a stool. Then I came to the right place. A man 2 seats down raised his glass toward me. You look like hell, friend. He was maybe in his 40s, thick jacket, rough hands, eyes that had seen the same kind of night I was having. Name is Jack Turner. We talked the way strangers talk when there is no need to impress each other. I told him enough without telling everything. He did not ask for details, just listened. I have got a trailer up in Timber Falls, he said after a while. Empty most of the year. It has water power and a hell of a view. If you ever need a place to disappear for a bit without hating yourself for it, you are welcome to it. He scribbled a number on the back of a bar and slid it across the counter. Ask for Jack. I pocketed the card, thanked him, and left. Driving back toward Salt Lake City, I kept replaying the face of the man with Karen. I had seen him before in a corporate photo on the Atlas Dynamics website. Colin Myers, regional vice president, engaged if the office gossip was true. I laughed once quietly. It was not jealousy anymore. It was exhaustion. The street lights rolled over the windshield like slow flashes of truth. When I finally pulled into our garage, I sat in the dark for a long time before going upstairs. The apartment was still the same coffee cups from the morning still on the counter. I stared at them and thought, I will not yell. I will not ask. I will just leave. And when I do, I will make sure she never sees me go. By the time Karen came home that Monday night, the city had already turned blue. The glow from the building across the street painted long rectangles of light along our walls. I was sitting on the couch, laptop closed, pretending to read. She dropped her bag on the counter and exhaled like someone finishing a race. Her coat smelled like a cologne that was not mine. We barely talk anymore, I said. The words came out even almost gentle. She glanced up, tired but sharp. "You travel half the month, Michael. What do you want to talk about?" "Maybe start with honesty," I said. She gave a short laugh. "You have been reading too many Reddit confession threads." She sat across from me, crossed her legs, eyes narrowing. "You are paranoid because you are lonely. You shut me out and now you are blaming me for it." I stared at her, trying to remember what loving her used to feel like. "You are right about one thing," I said quietly. "I am lonely, but I am not stupid." She rolled her eyes, got up, and disappeared into the bathroom. The sound of the shower filled the silence. I sat there until my phone buzzed on the coffee table, a company email sent by mistake. One of Karen's coworkers had forwarded a project report to me instead of another manager. I almost deleted it until a line at the bottom caught my eye. Project Silver Creek. Dinner with Myers and Karen. Done. I stared at the word Silver Creek until it blurred. Same name as the hotel. Same night. Proof typed out like a receipt. When she came out of the shower, I did not say a word. I just watched her move through the apartment in that distant rhythm that used to feel familiar. She grabbed a beige canvas tote on her way to the bedroom. Later, after she fell asleep, I opened it. Inside was a small box wrapped neatly, a tag attached from CM. I closed the box, slid it back in, and sat on the edge of the bed until the clock hit 2. The city outside kept breathing, and I realized I had already stopped. The next few days passed like static. I went to work, smiled when I needed to, and came home to an apartment that no longer belonged to me. When Karen was not around, I started moving small things into my car files, clothes, anything that felt like mine. The rest I left untouched. She would never notice. She was too busy pretending nothing had changed. One evening, she caught me in the kitchen staring at nothing. "Do not think I do not know about the phone you hid in my car," she said suddenly. Her tone was calm, rehearsed. "I found it." "You really thought you could track me like some criminal?" I looked up slowly. "I did not need to track you. You already told me everything I needed to know." She blinked, thrown off for a second, then smirked. "You are unbelievable." "Yeah," I said. "I used to think the same about you." That night, after she fell asleep again, I sat by the window and reopened the card Jack had given me at the bar. His handwriting was almost illegible, but I traced the words anyway. Timber Falls, ask for Jack. I wrote the coordinates in my notebook the same way I used to plan sales routes. Only this time I was not chasing clients. I was chasing silence. The next morning, another email arrived, one I should not have seen. A follow-up on that same report chain confirming Project Silver Creek closed successfully. Dinner with Colin Myers went perfectly. Kudos to Karen for sealing the deal. It felt poetic in a way. The lie had written its own confession. That evening she came home humming, pretending the air was not thick with what we both knew. I waited until she looked at me, then said quietly, "Thank you, Karen." She frowned. "For what?" "For making everything so clear. I do not even need an explanation." She tilted her head, confused. "What are you talking about?" But I did not answer. I just smiled, small and tired, and walked into the bedroom. While she brushed her hair, I slipped my wedding ring off, held it in my palm, and thought about that revolving glass door at the Silver Creek Lodge. How it kept spinning no matter who stepped inside. How I had been standing outside of it for a long time. When the lights went out, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself the only question that mattered. How far could I go without looking back? The city was beginning to thaw. Salt Lake City in early spring had that wet chill that crept under your sleeves and reminded you that winter was not gone, only pretending to be. For 3 days, I lived 2 separate lives. By daylight, I showed up at work, shook hands, answered calls, smiled in meetings. By night, I packed my life into boxes quietly, piece by piece. A shirt here, a book there. I left her side of the closet untouched, but mine was almost empty. She did not notice. Or maybe she did and did not care to ask. Karen still texted like nothing was wrong. Love you. Do not stay up too late. I would write back, good night. The simplest word in the English language had never felt so final. On the second day, I took the long drive up to Timber Falls. The road climbed through gray valleys and opened into the kind of air that made your lungs ache in the best way. Jack was waiting at the edge of his property, hands in his jacket pockets. Behind him, the trailer stood small and stubborn against the pines. "It is not much," he said, leading me up the steps, "but it is quiet. You will hear the wind before you hear yourself think." I stepped inside. The place smelled of cedar and Time's simple worn reel. "That is all I need," I said. He nodded. "Then it is yours for as long as you need it." I paid him half up front enough to make it real. As I drove back down the mountain, the weight in my chest loosened just enough for me to breathe. When I got home that evening, my phone buzzed with a number I did not recognize. I answered without thinking. A man's voice, low and quick. "Check whose name is on the new house she is buying." "What?" I asked, but the line had already gone dead. It did not make sense at first. Then I remembered Karen mentioning a new place near Lakeside Park, something about investing together building equity. She had brushed it off when I asked for details. Now the words twisted differently in my head. While she showered, I opened her laptop on the desk. She had forgotten to log out of her email. It did not take long to find it. Purchase agreement. Lakeside Park property. Her signature was there, but mine was not. The buyer field read only Karen Dennett. I had almost forgotten she had never taken my last name on anything official. I laughed short and sharp, not because it was funny, but because it felt absurd that I had ever thought this marriage was a team. She had been building an escape route long before I realized I needed one. By the last night, everything I owned fit neatly into the trunk of my car. The apartment looked exactly the same as it always had, neat, cold, spotless. I wrote one line on a piece of paper and left it on the kitchen table beside my ring. I hope it was worth it. Before I left, she texted again. "You okay? You have been quiet," I replied. "Just tired." She sent a heart emoji. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. When the elevator doors closed, I felt a flicker of panic. I almost pressed the button to go back up. Almost. Halfway down the garage ramp, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I hesitated, then picked up. The same man's voice, slower this time. "You are doing the right thing, and for what it is worth, he is not faithful either." The line went dead again. I did not need him to say who he was. It did not change anything, but it made everything sharper, like a final, cruel symmetry. I started the car. As the gate lifted, the elevator dinged above me. My pulse jumped. She was home early. I cut the headlight slid into the side exit. Through the narrow window of the stairwell, I saw her step out of the elevator, phone to her ear, confusion crossing her face as she looked around. "Michael?" she called out. Her voice echoed down the concrete walls. I stayed still, watching her silhouette pass across the hallway light. Then I turned away, pushed through the door, and did not look back. The road out of Salt Lake City stretched black and endless. By the time dawn touched the horizon, I was deep in the mountains, the air thin and biting. When I finally parked beside the trailer, the world was so quiet I could hear my heartbeat in the dark. I unlocked the door, dropped my bags, and opened the small window over the sink. The wind rushed in, cold and clean. I whispered to no one, "I have lost a home." But I found my silence, and for the first time in months, it felt like a fair trade. 8 months later, the mountains had become my only neighbors. The trailer sat between two tall pines, their branches whispering against the roof whenever the wind changed. Mornings began with coffee and frost, afternoons with work calls that ended too soon. Evenings were long and forgiving. The quiet did not judge me. It just waited. Sometimes Jack would stop by with supplies or sit with me at the tavern in Riverbend. We talked about weather roads and things that did not matter. He never asked about Salt Lake City, and I never offered. One morning, while jogging down a gravel road, I saw a car pulled over with a flat tire. A woman stood beside it, hands on her hips, cursing under her breath. She looked up when she heard my footsteps. "You look like someone who knows what a wrench is," she said. I smiled. "Depends who is asking." "Megan Holt," she replied, extending a hand. "I moved here last fall. People told me mountain living was peaceful. They did not mention it eats your tires alive." I knelt to help her. "Most people come here to find something," I said, tightening the lug nuts. "And you?" she asked. "Me." I paused. "I came here to bury something." Her laugh was small kind. "Then you picked the right place." When I got back to the trailer, an email waited in my inbox. The sender's name froze me. Karen. The subject line read, "I was wrong." I opened it out of instinct. "I know I do not deserve to ask, but where are you? Please, just tell me you are okay." I did not reply. I closed the laptop, stepped outside, and let the cold hit my face. That weekend, Jack invited me to his ranch. Over whiskey, he said, "You ever wonder who called you before you left Salt Lake City?" I looked up sharply. He smiled. Not proud, just honest. It was me. I had a friend in Atlas Dynamics. Heard whispers about Myers and your wife. Thought you deserved a warning. "So you knew," I said. I knew enough. Did not seem right to watch a man burn blind. For a while I did not say anything. Then I raised my glass. "Thank you." He nodded. "You are safer up here, Michael, but trouble has a long reach." He was not wrong. A week later, I found a brown envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single photograph, me and Karen on our wedding day, smiling at something just outside the frame. Her face was crossed out with red ink. I stared at it for a long time, not sure if the chill that ran through me was fear or something darker. I tossed it into the fire, but the image burned slow, curling at the edges like it did not want to go. That night, as I drove into Riverbend for groceries, I stopped by the cafe I had started frequenting, Pinecone Caf. The place smelled of cinnamon and espresso, the kind of warmth that made you forget the wind outside. I took a seat by the window, opened my laptop, tried to work. When I looked up, a woman in a black coat was standing across the street, camera raised. The flash went off once, faint in the daylight. I blinked, and she was gone. I stepped outside, scanned the crowd, but there was no sign of her. Only my reflection in the cafe window, and behind it, the empty chair where I had been sitting. Back at the trailer, I wrote a single line in my journal before turning off the lamp. When you think the mountains have swallowed your past, listen closely. The footsteps always find their way through the snow. The wind picked up, rattling the door, whispering against the glass like it knew my name. And for the first time, I wondered if peace was something you earned, or just something that let you hide until it decided to take you back. 18 months had passed since I left Salt Lake City, but that afternoon in Riverbend felt like no time had passed at all. The sun slipped through the cafe window, painting long golden stripes across the floorboards. I was working on a report, half listening to the hiss of the espresso machine, when I heard someone say my name. Michael. It was soft but sharp enough to slice through the noise. I looked up and saw her standing across the street, Karen. She wore a black coat, her hair pinned up the way she used to when she wanted to look composed. She was not composed now. Her shoulders shook slightly, though her smile tried to hide it. For a second, my body forgot what to do. Then muscle memory took over. I closed my laptop, stood, and walked outside. The first thing I felt was not anger. It was exhaustion, the kind that sinks deep into your bones after you have already fought every battle and lost the will to swing again. She crossed the street toward me, clutching her purse like a peace offering. "I just want to talk," she said. I nodded toward a table outside the cafe. "Then sit." Her eyes softened, maybe relieved that I did not walk away. "You look different." "I am." She exhaled, looking at her hands. "Kelly Reed told me where you were. I ran into her at a conference last week. I begged her to tell me I had to see you." I stared past her at the mountains in the distance, snow still clinging to their tips. Kelly Reed, one of the few people I still trusted, the one person who had promised to keep my secret. And now she had handed me back to the past. "So, Kelly gave you directions," I said quietly. "That is fitting. She always liked to fix what was not hers." Karen did not answer. The silence stretched until it started to ache. She finally spoke, her voice smaller. "After you left, everything fell apart. Atlas Dynamics found out about me and Colin Myers. HR got involved. I was asked to resign. He blamed me for everything, said I had seduced him, said I was obsessed. I did not flinch, and his fiancée, she found out, ended the engagement. He was transferred. I have not heard from him since." I looked at her, then really looked. Her face was thinner, her eyes heavier, like she had not slept right in months. There was no pleasure in seeing her broken, only a strange stillness. "Karma moves faster than people think," she said, laughing softly, though it trembled on her lips. I said nothing. After a long pause, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "The photo I sent you, the one from our wedding. I have to tell you something. I was the one who mailed it. I thought if you reacted, maybe you still felt something. I needed to know you had not gone numb." I stared at her, at the absurdity of it all. "You sent that. You wanted to haunt me just to see if I would scream." Her eyes filled with tears. "I did not mean to scare you. I just did not know how else to reach you." "You could have tried honesty," I said, "but that has never been your language." She flinched, then reached across the table. "Michael, I have lost everything. My job, my name, everything I thought I wanted. I know I hurt you, and I will never forgive myself. Please, if you can you forgive me?" "Forgive." I repeated the word like it was something fragile. "Maybe. But forget, no. Some things do not deserve to be forgotten." For a moment, the cafe faded away, and it was just the two of us, two people sitting in the ashes of what used to be a life. She sniffed, wiped her eyes, and reached for her coffee. That is when I saw it, the faint silver band mark on her finger, a thin trace where a ring had recently been. "You sit here talking like you are alone," I said quietly. "But that mark on your finger says otherwise, Karen." She froze. "It is just an old ring. I forgot to take it off before." I smiled, tired and sad. "You are still lying, Karen. You do not even know you are doing it anymore." Her voice cracked. "I still love you. Maybe you do," I said, standing, "but that does not make it real anymore." I left money on the table and turned toward the street. She called after me once, but I did not look back. The sun was already dropping behind the mountains, and its light hit my back like a closing door. As I walked away, I realized the hardest part of healing was not leaving. It was knowing you might still feel something and choosing peace anyway. That was the day I stopped being angry. And that was the day I knew she could no longer touch me even if she stood right in front of me. Summer came to the mountains slow and soft. The air smelled like pine and dirt after rain, the kind of scent that made you think of clean slates. It had been a month since I had seen Karen in Riverbend. Since then, I had received one last email. The subject line read, "Please read this. It is the last." I clicked it open but stopped halfway through. "I am moving to Idaho for work. Maybe there is still time for us to start again. Maybe I can fix this." I closed the laptop before finishing the paragraph. I did not delete it. I just archived it. A quiet act of finality. Sometimes the only way to win is to stop playing. The next morning, a small package arrived in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a wristwatch mine, the one I had given her on our wedding day, the back engraved with our initials. The glass was cracked, the hands frozen at 9:38. I turned it over in my palm for a long time before setting it in the drawer beside my bed. I did not bother replacing the battery. Some things are meant to stay stopped. A week later, I drove down to Riverbend for groceries. I stopped at a hardware store, then a diner for coffee. That is where I saw him, Colin Myers. He was sitting alone in a corner booth, unshaven, thinner a shell of the polished man I had seen outside that bar in Stonebridge. When he noticed me, there was no shock in his eyes, only recognition. "Michael," he said, voice low. "She came to see me too a few months back." I nodded. "What did you tell her, that she should leave it alone?" He laughed bitterly. "Did not listen, did she?" "No," I said. He looked down at his coffee, swirling it like it might tell his fortune. "You know she ruined my engagement. I ruined her career. Feels like we burned the same house from opposite sides. Then I guess we both learned what happens when you play with matches," I said, standing. He smiled faintly. "Guess so." When I walked out, I did not feel anger toward him, just a strange kind of pity. We were both casualties of the same storm. Only difference was I had found higher ground. That evening, Megan Holt showed up at the trailer with 2 cups of coffee and a small radio in her hands. "I figured you would appreciate some noise that is not the wind," she said. We sat on the porch as the sky turned gold and pink. The radio played old songs through its static hum. Neither of us spoke for a while. The silence felt full, not empty. I finally said, "I used to think silence was running away. Now I think it is the only way to stand still without falling." She smiled, eyes reflecting the fading light. Maybe that is what healing sounds like. When the first rays of sunrise broke over the ridgeline, I realized it was the first time in years I was not thinking about anyone else. The weight was gone. I took a deep breath. The kind that fills you from the inside out. Not everyone who leaves loses something. Some of us leave to find what was missing all along. In the quiet, the world exhaled with me. And for the first time, the silence did not feel like absence. It felt like home. Sometimes life does not end with a slammed door or a final word. It ends in a whisper, in the quiet understanding that some chapters are not meant to be rewritten. What I learned through everything, through betrayal, loss, silence, and rebuilding, is that peace is not something you stumble into. It is something you earn when you stop begging chaos to love you back. I used to think closure came from someone else's apology. I waited for it from Karen, from the world, from whatever cruel rhythm had turned my life inside out. But closure does not arrive in words or regrets. It arrives when you choose not to reopen the wound, just to prove you have healed. There is a kind of strength in walking away quietly and letting silence speak for you when anger wants to shout. It is the kind that does not win applause or validation, just stillness, dignity, and air that finally feels light again. If you have ever had to rebuild from something that broke you, you know what I mean. It is not about revenge or proving them wrong. It is about proving to yourself that you were always more than what they left behind. Maybe your story is not about love ending. Maybe it is about you beginning again on your own terms this time. So if you are here listening to this, tell me where you are from. Tell me how far this story reached, or just drop a simple hi in the comments, because sometimes knowing someone is out there hearing you makes the loneliness a little quieter. And if this story touched you, if you have ever had to walk away from something that no longer deserved, you do not forget to subscribe. There are more stories like this, not about heartbreak, but about how people find their way back to themselves after the storm. Because in the end, That is what every story is really about. Losing, learning, and living again. Thank you for staying with me until the end. My name is Michael Grant, and this is not a story about being left. It is a story about finally choosing to stay with